Welcome back to AstroFic, your dose of fun, relatable astrology content where we apply astrology to fictional characters to find out why they're like that. I'm your host, Celeste V, and this week we are talking about none other than the very fashionable Tigris from the Hunger Games. Real quick update for you guys. I know I said that I would be doing more episodes, and I promise I've written more episodes, but the state of the world has thrown me into a spiral. Not doing so good here on this side of the globe. A lot of things that are happening are actually posing a direct threat to both my current circumstance, my current life circumstances, and my potential future ones. If you don't know, I'm very involved in academia. I actually just received my Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology. I got my diploma in the mail literally yesterday as of recording this. And I am supposed to start a PhD program in the fall, and things just aren't looking good on that front, really. I hope things turn around, but here at the top of the episode, before we get into all the fun stuff, I would like to implore you guys, all of my listeners, to contact your representatives. And if you are an American listener, I implore you to contact your representatives and tell them to fight against the administration's executive orders as much as possible, and just try to fight back on anything that the administration is trying to implement, because it harms real people every day. And I know that I'm facing probably the least harmful effects of it. So please just contact your representatives. I can try to put links in the show notes or in my link tree of how you can find them and how you can do that. So take a look there if you feel so called to do so. All right, let's go into the episode. Let's talk about Tigris, who is none other than President Snow's cousin, once beloved and now estranged. Off the bat, just to give you a little taste, her sun is in Virgo, her moon is in Pisces, and we're, as always, going to start with her rising sign, which is in Libra. So her first house is in Libra, and there's just something about a girly who's good with fashion that's always going to give a Venusian rising sign to me. Libra especially just screams fashion to me. Like, I think that I made a significant number of Elle Woods' placements in the first season. I think she has a significant number of Libra placements, if not just the rising. Also, Libra is all about balance and justice. It's the scales, so all Tigris craves is harmony, balance, and an appropriate level of justice for what has been done. She is very empathetic towards the tributes and seems to only grow more empathetic towards them after seeing the relationship that Snow and Lucy Gray create together. Additionally, Tigris centers the identity that she wants to create around these ideals, which is why in Mockingjay Part 2, and towards the end of the Mockingjay books, we find out who Tigris is for the first time, because she stows away these rebels in her basement during the peak of the conflict between the capital and these rebel districts and District 13. So yeah, Libra rising, I just think it's such a beautiful placement, and it's one that really strives towards harmony and justice and balance, which is very admirable to dedicate your life to. In the first house also, she has her Mercury here, so her Mercury is in Libra. Now, Mercury and Libra don't necessarily get along. Libra and Saturn get along, Libra and Venus get along, but Mercury and Libra aren't necessarily on the best of terms. I think that this makes Tigris someone who isn't really willing to be open about her thoughts because it may cause strife in her environment. So because if she were to voice her opinions or her ideas, it would likely cause her environment to become unbalanced and unharmonious, which is not something that she strives to do. So because of that, she holds back a lot. And I think we see that at the end of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes in the movie, when Tigris, a young Tigris, is played by Hunter Schafer, who does a phenomenal job, by the way. But she does something very subtle and very slight, where she does not call Coriolanus by his affectionate nickname that she's given him, Corio. She calls him Coriolanus, and there is a huge rift that opens between them with that one action. Very subtle, very slight, but she would never voice her full thoughts and opinions to him because she knows how he is, and she knows that it would only cause a destruction to come into their home environment that they share together. So that is, there's one more Libra placement here. She has her Chiron in Libra in the first house also, which makes her have trouble feeling connected to her rising sign. Chiron is the placement, it's an asteroid that shows where you have like your earliest trauma in life, I guess. Something that you carry with you for the rest of your life that you try to remedy within yourself and others. But the way that this manifests, I think, first and foremost, is that it makes her have trouble connecting to her rising sign. Like there are, littler ways that she connects with her rising sign. But I think that as a whole, because she's not open about her ideas and beliefs and stuff, also because of her Mercury sign, that she has trouble connecting with this idea that she is somebody who can more extremely go after justice and balance in her life. She's very subtle in everything that she does. Also, with a Chiron in the first house, it's really giving like this person was not permitted to be their full self. So I think that this, for Tigris, manifests in that she was probably having to tap into the Virgo side of her. If you recall, I said her sun sign is in Virgo, in order to be accepted. And we'll get more into this when we get to the 12th house, but her sun is in the 12th house in Virgo. Virgo comes right directly before Libra. And the 12th house is said to be the house of hidden enemies. And I think that for Tigris, the hidden enemy is the self that others want her to be. And this, could very well be true for anybody who has a 12th house sun. And it's not necessarily just because of her Chiron in this house, but I think it's more pronounced because of the Chiron placement. Her most authentic self is often ridiculed and tossed aside. I think the most obvious example is the fact that she was dismissed from being a stylist for the games after her tattoos went out of fashion. They were fashionable when she got them, and I think that they're fucking cool. I think that they're dope. But because it was no longer fashionable to have tattoos, she was dismissed as a stylist. And Coriolanus could have prevented that, but he didn't, because she wasn't fashionable anymore, and she was getting old, and why would he want that person to be a stylist for his child killing games? So Tigris actually doesn't have anything in the second house of Scorpio, or just kidding, she does have one placement in the third house of Sagittarius. So we're going to move on ahead there. She has her Neptune in Sagittarius in the third house. I think that this makes her very imaginative, and in the proper company, very honest. This brings out the side of her that wants to be honest, even if that is usually kept hidden. There's also a sense of loyalty to her very close family members like Snow and her close community members. I think that this sense of loyalty and Neptune's positive, optimistic outlook and imagination is probably what compelled her to allow the rebels to stay in her basement during Mockingjay. But her loyalty does not outweigh her morals or her overwhelming urge for balance and justice in all situations. So her loyalty to Snow did not outweigh the fact that she knew that he was corrupt and doing wrong. And she, with this placement, I think that she absolutely does not understand how Snow can lie so much or why he'd even want/need to. She just doesn't get it. And, of course, she's also keeping secrets and keeping parts of herself hidden, but she sees herself as doing it for the good of humanity and everyone around her, whereas she sees Snow's lies and manipulations and can see that they only serve him and they only serve his purpose. He's not doing it for anybody else but himself, and he can try to say that he's doing it for their grandmother or for Tigris herself or for their family, their honor, or whatever, his deceased parents. He can say whatever, but she can see, because she knows him so well, that it is all for himself and for his own ego. Moving on to the fourth house. We're getting real quick with these episodes. I'm not dawdling so much anymore. Anyways, her fourth house only has one placement, which is her Saturn in Capricorn, which is a domicile placement. Saturn rules over Capricorn traditionally, but having a Capricorn Saturn still sucks. I'm not gonna lie, it still sucks. Having Saturn sucks. No, I'm just kidding. But Saturn in the fourth house is really tough, and I say that as somebody with Saturn in the fourth house, and mine isn't nearly as benevolent as this Saturn placement because mine is in Taurus, and while there are ups to that, there are also great downs to being Saturn ruled and not having your Saturn in a Saturn ruled zodiac sign. Anyways, for Tigris, it sucks. All she wants is to have a nice, structured, and caring home environment, and that's exactly the opposite of what she has. That's exactly the opposite of the hand that she was dealt. After her first Saturn return, which we don't see. Well, we might see, if we see her in the Haymitch book that's coming out next month, we might see a little bit of her first Saturn return. But after her first Saturn return, it's likely that she cultivated the kind of environment that she always wanted. So she was a stylist, she was doing great things, and no, we won't see it in the Haymitch book, actually. I'm thinking about ages and timelines and things like that, and I don't think we'll see it. Anyways, I think that after her first Saturn return, she's established as a stylist. I'm sure that their grandmother is long gone. So nobody has to take care of her anymore. Tigris just takes care of herself, and she's got that stylist money, and she's, the cousin of Coriolanus Snow, who's on the rise to power, and she's doing well for herself. And so I think that she was able to cultivate this home environment that she longed for so much of her life. But her growing up is a very different story. She grew up in a very traditional, strict environment with her grandmother, and one where she was basically the caretaker, defaulting to traditional household norms for a woman, which is very hard. Capricorn is very ambitious, and I know that Tigris is happy to do the things for her family that she could do, but being a caretaker weighs on you, and it wears you down, and eventually all you can think about is not having to take care of these people anymore. and instead going out and doing your own thing, which I'm sure is what she wanted to do most of all. It's, you know, it's really, I just can't stress enough how not fun of a placement it is. Of course, every Saturn placement has their hardships, but Saturn in the fourth house feels like it stays with you for your entire life. You know, like some of these other houses, I feel like there are things you can get over. But when Saturn is in a house that has to do with your relationships to other people, it feels particularly difficult to get over that. So we're going to move on ahead to her 5th house, which is in Aquarius. I'm seeing she only has one placement here. This is going to be Jupiter in the Aquarius 5th house, and I make these charts myself, but I just kind of go with where the vibe fits the best, and where I don't think so much about what supporting evidence I have for these things. The supporting evidence kind of comes to me after I make the chart. So I gave her Jupiter in the Aquarius 5th house, so that a lot of her natal chart energy is focused on her creative ability, because she's just such a great stylist, and that's a character trait that is reinforced again and again throughout the books, throughout the book one singular, and throughout all of the little things that we see and hear about her in Mockingjay. I think that she could also have had some really life-changing romantic experiences. I don't have any supporting evidence for that, but I think that she's a very kind-hearted and beautiful woman, and I'm sure that she had very many romantic experiences, probably, you know, some whirlwind, some more stable and reliable, and I'm sure that for a Libra rising they change they change you in a way that feels profound. Also, just gonna say it, something about Jupiter in Aquarius 5th house is low-key giving Woola. It's low-key giving she's sapphic and likes dating women most of all, which is something interesting to think about, because we don't really see any same-sex, same-gender couples in the Hunger Games, but we also don't explicitly hear anything against it, but we do know that this world is much more conservative and traditional and strict, and so while nobody says anything against same-gender couples and romance, it seems like it's not really the norm. We don't see that a lot, but overall, for this placement, her creative output is 100% ahead of its time. She is living in the future with the clothes that she creates. And we're going to move into her 6th house. She has her moon here, but I'm actually going to talk about her Mars placement first, because this kind of goes in with the Jupiter. Mars in Pisces, she's a water baby. All right. And she just wants to live easily without doing harm to anybody else. And to some people, it may seem like her drive and ambition is all focused on quote unquote small matters. But to her, these are her larger ambitions. You know, she wants to create beautiful clothes that make people feel things, feel seen, feel beautiful. And she wants to do all of this without doing harm to anybody else. She doesn't want to put anybody else down. She wants to elevate whoever is in her clothing, which I think is something that we see when she makes things or mends things, alters them for Coriolanus. And while these seem like small matters to people with larger ambitions like Coriolanus, it is her whole life. This is what she wants to do. So let's take that and move into her moon sign now. She's very emotional. We love her. She feels things so deeply with a moon in Pisces. But I also think that weirdly, this is what makes her so optimistic and see people's best sides, even if they refuse to acknowledge those sides or grow towards that. With her moon and Mars in the 6th house that rules over daily function, daily schedules, and your physical well-being and health, I think that she can very plainly see things about people that they more or less try to hide. And it's not like a psychic thing, and it's not like she has just such a deep, profound understanding of humanity. It's more that the people that are trying to hide these things, they're trying to hide them from people not like Tigris. She, again, her life above all is just trying to live in harmony and peace and do no harm to others. Someone like that can see a lot in the people around them that those people don't want them to see, because this is kind of a blind spot for people who have things to hide. It's like, oh, they didn't expect to meet somebody who wasn't shady and trying to fuck them over. So I think that she sees things actually pretty clearly, even if others don't see it. Right. So her 7th house is in Aries, but she does not have any placements there. And she also does not have any placements in her 8th house of Taurus. But she does have one placement in her Gemini 9th house, and it's Uranus. Her outlook on life and the way that she views the world is dependent on the information she has. And you would be like, duh, that's like a basic thing. You would be so surprised how many people don't take into account information when they construct their outlook on life and their worldview. It's not like they're just not paying attention to information that they receive. It's like they get information as a child, and that's the information that they stick with, and their outlook on life and their worldview may be much more optimistic than is actually true. So Tigris operates on all of the information that she is given, and therefore is constantly changing the way that she views the world and her outlook on life based on the information that she receives. The more information she gathers as she ages, plus all the things that she already knows, can make her change her mind about these philosophies. Her turn to the rebellion might be a surprise to Snow, but it's something that happened almost in the background of her life. Like I don't think it was a conscious choice. It was little steps, little things moving that way. Like, the Hunger Games are the Hunger Games, but it's very possible that one of the little things that she felt because of her upbringing is everybody should have a right to food. Everybody should have a right to clothing. Maybe she didn't extend that thought process to things like housing or medical care or entertainment, like anything fun, music or plays or anything like that. Maybe she didn't extend it that far, but those two ideas of everybody should have food and everybody should have clothing are rooted in her upbringing, because they often lacked those things, and are actually two ideas that are quite possibly some of the most radical ideas to have in Panem, especially when your dear cousin is the soon-to-be president of the country. So yeah, Uranus can turn her world upside down, but it happens so quickly that it feels like background to her. And it's not something that will be very noticeable. So she doesn't have any placements in the 10th house of Cancer, which honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, might be an oversight. I feel like she should have some Cancer placements. But for some reason, I thought that giving her a Leo Venus in the 11th house was actually more impactful. So we're going to go with that. So, like I said, Leo Venus, 11th house. Again, her optimistic outlook and overall belief in human goodness shines through in this heart-centered placement. This is her ruling planet as a Libra Venus. She's truly a lover girl down to her core. She wants to give those that she loves a chance to shine, and this is what makes her a really great stylist for the games. And if they didn't live in the age that they live, she would have been a great stylist on anything else also. She wants everyone in the world to appreciate the beauty around them and recognize that they are also a part of that beauty. That's me reaching a little bit, but I don't think that you can argue very well against that statement, because I think that she has that kind of sentiment towards Snow. Like she's very much a stop and smell the roses kind of person, and Snow is very ambitious and go, go, go. Lucy Gray is also a bit of a stop and smell the roses person, and I think Tigris can kind of sense that, and I think that Tigris had ultimately felt very fond and affectionate towards Lucy Gray, despite them not really formally meeting or anything. So that's her Venus placement, which I think is very beautiful and lovely. The last placement in her chart that we will speak about is actually her sun sign. Like I said, her sun is in the 12th house. And I just want to say, I know a lot of people don't like the Virgo-Libra combination, but I like it, and I think it's a serve. If you have Virgo and Libra placements, I think you're serving, and nobody can convince me otherwise. With her sun in the 12th house, though, she absolutely suppresses her own ego and desires to make things easier for other people. And I know we've touched on that before in other placements, but I think that with her sun in the 12th house specifically, it's very prevalent with this placement. It's very this is the backbone of that behavior, and everything else is just kind of adding on to it, in my opinion, since the sun is, the ego. I think she's also a very meticulous planner and has very good attention to detail. And I think that this is evident in the way that she handles altering and creating her family's clothes. I also think that this attention to detail is evident in how she analyzes and examines Coriolanus's behavior and his change in behavior throughout the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I think that she is much more attentive than maybe people give her credit for. Snow doesn't seem to think that she is the brightest of the bunch, though he claims to care and love for her very much. But she's actually quite emotionally intelligent and very good at reading social cues and very good at reading people, as we said, in her Pisces house with her moon and her Mars. So I think that her insight goes much deeper, and I just think that this is another placement where she can absolutely read people to filth. Whether she does or says anything about it, though, I think is very, very planned. She wouldn't act on impulse. She has no Aries placements. She has very few fire placements. She has one in Leo and one in Sagittarius, and neither of these fire placements are necessarily that impulsive. Her Gemini placement might make her a little bit more impulsive, but overall I think that most of her placements are creating the facade of somebody who is actually quite calculating, whether other people give her the credit for that or not. All right, so with that, I think that is the end of this episode. So thank you all for listening. The next episode, actually, let me check. The next episode will be on Joanna Mason. I have that script, those notes all ready for filming, for recording, I mean. So that'll be the next thing that you all hear from me, and I hope to get that out before the end of February to give you guys 2 episodes this month, and in preparation for the book. You've been listening to AstroFic, your favorite astrology podcast hosted by me, Celeste V. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please don't forget to leave a rating and review. If you're one of our new YouTube listeners, please leave a like and a comment. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Love you. Bye.